Oh, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, I can't see me, so, because we're on a delay. So, I want to tell you all happy October. Thank you for being here. Oh, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to paint a garden stake. I'll turn down my sound. We're going to paint a garden stake, and I'll go through a couple of things with you. I'm going to tell you how you can be creative. This piece was bought at Walmart, so you don't have to buy a piece. My demo piece, and I'll show you when I flip you around, I bought at the dollar store. We can change the face, we can change a couple of things. So I'm going to show you how you can be creative, how we can do all these wonderful things, and I'll show you all the techniques. The end of class, I'll show you November's class, and I will give you a sneak peek on the surface you should buy for December. All right, I'm going to flip you around. Let's paint. Thank you all for coming. Let me make sure I got you where I need you. Okay, so while I'm still on a delay, I will tell you, I don't know what that means. Okay, I will read the comments when I can. I will also go back at the end of class and I will answer every comment. So if I miss your comment, I will answer it after. If you need me to answer it in between, I will as I can. Okay? Okay, welcome all. Thank you for coming. All right, so this I did on a Walmart piece. It was a Walmart stake. It was in the Halloween section. And it was painted. Okay? And I just painted over it. I'm going to do the same for my demo piece because they didn't have another one. I found this at the dollar store, which is the shape of a pumpkin. And I just flipped it over and I'm painting on the back of it. A really good thing to know is you can paint on anything you want. Okay? I paint on soup cans. I paint on everything. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of things to get us started. Now, I'm going to start with a big brush. I'm going to start, let me see if I can find one, maybe a 3/4. We'll use a 3/4 brush because we're going to shade our pumpkin to create our ribs. These sections here, each section is called a rib. Now, no matter what pumpkin you're painting on, if you're making your own, when you have these dips, that's where your ribs start and that's where your ribs stop. Okay? So here, I would have more ribs than I'm going to have here. Okay? But if you think your rib is going to go from here to here. Okay? So we're going to float. Floating is 4 steps. Wet, blot, load, blend. Okay, so remember, wet, blot, load, blend. The first step is we wet. If you watch the shine on your brush, you can see there's a shine on your bristles. On your brush, this is your bristles, this is your ferrule, this is your handle. Your bristles, you can see a shine when it's wet. So you wet, you blot flat. You'll watch the shine dissipate when it goes from the chisel edge to the ferrule you lift. Every brush is different. All bristles are different. So if you go by that formula, you will get a really good load in your brush. 4 steps, wet, blot. We're going to pick up some Heritage brick. I didn't get a clean palette, so. And I'm going to load. So we wet, we blot, we corner load. When I corner load, I'm as close to the plate as I can be. I try not to be on an angle because you get a lot more paint across your brush. So I load, that's step number 3, and I blend. When you blend, very short strokes. Okay, walking away until you have a graduation of color. okay? So you don't want to do this, because if you see, I started good, and all this skipping here is I've pulled too much water out of my brush. So if I stay in small strokes, I don't lose the moisture in my brush. Now, if I wet, blot, corner load, and blend, and I have there where you see my paint is coming right across, that means I have too much water in my brush and I didn't blot enough. So what I do is I go in with my paper towel, and here's the corner with the paint, here's the corner with the water. I just blot that corner, and look at how much water came out of there. I don't know if you can see it well on camera. And then I can go back and blend, and I have a really good blend. Okay, so remember the 4 stages of floating is wet, blot, load, blend. And then when we float, we're flat on the surface. So the only time my brush is not flat is when I'm loading my paint, and then I'm this way. Other than that, I'm flat. Okay, so now I want to separate my ribs. Now on a pumpkin, your center rib is the front rib. So you want your center rib to be the one that's most pronounced. So your paint will go towards your center rib. Okay, so on this side my paint is here, on this side my paint is here. So I'm going to start at the top, wet, blot, load, blend. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to bend. Think of a pumpkin, and I'm going to bend. Now you see how I do it in one long stroke? I do not want to do, and I know this didn't go to here, so we'll just move this. This wonderful pumpkin is not made right. The shape is not right, but that's okay. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to do this. You see all those lines? You can see everywhere I moved my brush. I don't want to do that. Okay? I want to have a nice stroke. So I'm here. And thank you all for being here with me. We really have a lot of fun. Can you see that? Now you can go back and forth. That's fine. But don't chop. If you have too much of a line, you can use a mop. And it's just up and down. Literally here, let me see if I can show you. I'm just touching. I'm not this. I'm just touching. I'm just, think of it as just softening. Okay? Hi, Marie. Okay, so then I'll flip. I personally, when I paint, I pull towards me. It is not wrong if you pull away from you. It's just not comfortable for me. I always say pull the way it's comfortable. So I just flip upside down, because it doesn't matter if you pull from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. It makes no difference. Start at this point. I'm curving with the outside edge, and I'm creating that rib. So now you can see, because dark makes the item recede and light brings the item towards us. So there's no dark on the center rib, because that's the front rib, and then they fall back from there. Okay? Wet, blot, load, blend. And we'll come in, and again, we'll flip. Now if you see, what I did is I took my very flat orange pumpkin and I created the depth, because this is on top. You can tell this is on top of this, but because we shaded here, this is on top of this. So you can see where I have that depth. Okay? Now to round it out, and always wait till you're dry. You can tell if you're wet. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a shine here. This is still wet. So where there's a shine, that means it's still wet. Now, if I were to come in and float here, what happens is because this is wet, I'm going to pull it right off. We don't want to do that. So we go back to wet, flat, load, blend. And I'll just walk away from that one for a minute. And now I'm coming right along the bottom of each rib. I'm not standardly going across. I'm doing each rib separately because I want to round out the pumpkin. And to round out the pumpkin, I'm pushing that down. Okay? And like I said, all I'm doing is creating the depth at this point. Okay? I'm going to float the bottom of this rib. And then when I float the bottom of this rib, I'm going to keep coming up and going all the way up the side because we want to push the sides of the pumpkin down. So we'll go all the way up, and that'll round out our pumpkin. Okay, so what we did in rounding out our pumpkin, and I'm going to do this side, I'm just giving it a minute to dry. Now this edge looks like it's coming down, and this is coming up. The bottom is going down. So now instead of just a flat pumpkin, I have some dimension to it. Remember, dark makes the item recede, light brings the item towards us. So we play with color to create that depth. Now I'm going to do the outside edge here for the same reason. Okay. And I'm here. And now I've just created all that depth. And for anybody that came in late, I said that all I did was I bought a pumpkin at the dollar store and I'm just painting on the back of it. This piece, they didn't have anymore when I went back. This piece was Walmart and it was a painted yardstake and I just painted right over what was there. Now, if there wasn't so much glitter on here, I would just sand it down and paint it, but it was just easier to do this. And you'll see at the end, I'll show you the pieces for December, and you'll see how we're just going to paint right over things. Sorry. All right. So now what we want to do is we've created the back depth. And remember, that's pushing down. And if anybody has questions, just ask. Usually I'm pretty good. Oh, Emily, I'm so glad you're painting yours. Are you painting yours on a real pumpkin? Emily said she was painting on a pumpkin. So I'm going to take Cad Yellow and I'm going to dry brush. Now, when you dry brush, I use stencil brushes to dry brush. It's a Dynasty Stencil Pro, but it's super, super soft. It's not like a traditional hard dry brush. You could also use a traditional dry brush. And it's just it's small, so you might get some lines, but you absolutely can. When you use a dry brush, you use it dry, okay? It can be washed after you're done with it, but until then, you do not. All right, so I'm going to pick up some Cad Yellow, and I'm going to load it on the whole brush. And then I'm going to take my paper towel and we'll scrub, because I don't want big blobs on my piece. Now I'm going to come into the center of each rib, and I'm going to dry brush. Now the color is not far off from the orange, so I have to build that up a little bit, and I'm just back and forth. I don't want to blob paint on and get a blob. I want to build the color up slowly. Okay? So you see how now I'm creating more depth? And I'll come in the center here. And I'll dry brush here. And I'm just following the shape of the ribs. So the rib kind of has a little bit of an angle. I keep getting a lot up here. Okay. Now when I get to the center, I'll come in. And every time I load, I'm loading and I'm wiping. I'm really wiping. This is one of the few brushes you can really scrub the paint off of. Okay, I'm here. Now I'm following this side. I'm following this side. Make sure I'm on camera. And then I'm going to fill in the middle. I don't want to suddenly have a straight line. Like I don't want to just come down. I want to follow the flow of the pumpkin. I'm also not going to the very edges because I don't want the whole thing yellow. I want this to be a little bit further back than this. So now it looks like it's going like this as opposed to like this. Okay? And that's how we create our depth. I'm going to come in. I'm just, if you see, I'm just going back and forth. It might take me, sometimes it takes me, I don't know, 20 times. Sometimes it takes me 2 times. If you were taking white on black, it's a much bigger value change. So it's something that would really be in your face. Now, I made a mistake. And I would like to tell you I did it on purpose. I did not. Here, this was wet. I had too much paint on when I was dry brushing, so that's what we call digging a hole. If you can see that, I have that little hole right there that I can't get rid of. Okay, so the way to get around that, and we call it a nice cheating way, is I'll paint a bat right here so that you won't see it. If I were to go in and put more and more paint on it, what happens is it's going to turn the whole thing yellow because you'd have to put enough on to cover that. But the reason for this, or I could come in and take a wet paper towel and take all the yellow off and start again. But the reason for this is I had too much paint on my brush and I put it on and I just kept going. And once I saw I was creating a hole, I kept doing it so that I could show you how to fix it and what it was. It didn't start. It didn't start as intentional. It ended intentional. Okay. Hey, Jane. Hey, Deb. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so now if you just wanted a plain pumpkin, not tonight, but if you wanted to paint a couple of pumpkins to hang in your window, like on small pieces, you could go to the dollar store or whatever, and they have small pumpkins, and you could do them and just hang them in the windows plain for November, or do different faces for October. I get confused. Okay, so we started. The answer to your question, Jane, is you can go back in and rebase the piece, but you'd have to rebase the entire rib. Okay, so I don't know if you're all reading the comments, but Jane asked if when we fix the hole, can we use our base coat to cover, let it dry, and then re-dry brush? Okay, yes and no. Yes, you can rebase this whole rib. You can't just rebase here, okay? Because it will be very obvious when you go in and you re-dry brush, because now you're creating a line here and taking this dry brush out, okay? So yes, that's another way you can do it, just rebase this whole section. But in my world, I'll just put a bat there, you know? So on this piece, the original piece, it was a pumpkin and it had this funky looking sunflower here. So if you see the shape here, that's why we have some odd looking bats. because it had the sunflower and the leaves. So I just made them bats, okay? And then this one I added. So if I were going to put in my bats, which if you printed off my line drawing, which I put my line drawings up about a week before on my Facebook page, and then they come down the night of class. All right, just an FYI. But the bats are there. And so my line drawing, can you see that on here? Let me give it a minute. Aw, thank you, B. Okay, so here's my original piece. So if I laid this here, it would line up. Okay? So here are my bats. Let me just get a piece of white paper. That's good. Now you can see it. Here are my bats. When you make a bat, so if you have a bigger piece like this, and I'll show you how to transfer in a minute, a bat is very simple. Just do a side, and then just kind of dip down for ears. Okay? So it's just a simple, and then the wings just come up and down and up. This is just a very simple bat. Okay? So you would just create bats like that. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to transfer the pattern. I'm going to show you how to do it on paper. And then I'm going to draw it because this one's bigger. So, you're going to lay your piece on your surface. You're going to take a piece of graphite paper. Graphite paper is, it works like carbon paper, but it is not carbon paper. Okay? There's a dull side and there's a shiny side. Now, if you see, I've used this 1,000 times. You can use graphite 1,000 times. And it comes in big sheets. So here's white. Okay, so you see how big, and this is like half a sheet. So they're big. And you use white graphite to transfer on a dark surface. Now, what people tend to do, let me use this. I will use this. Is they put their graphite down, and then they go like this, and they try to line it up. And it's really hard because you can't see where the edges of your pumpkin are. So I like to lay my tracing down, my line drawing, and then I hold the corner, and I lift. Remember, shiny side down. I lift, and I just transfer. And I just follow the lines. And that'll give you your pattern. Okay? Because this one is bigger, I am going... Now the reason, and I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to talk while I'm drawing this. The reason, and I'm going to give it a different face. So think about what you want to do. Something like this you can really play with. What you want to do is you want to... Sorry. You want to use pressure. So you're using pressure to transfer the pattern. It doesn't matter if you use a pencil. It doesn't matter if you use... It makes no difference. You can use whatever you want. Oh, that eye's kind of big. Yeah, we'll do it anyway. So, and when I do circles, I always do a template. And I do a template because circles are really hard to get, right? So they sell templates with all different shapes and different sizes. So there's my eyes. And I'll change the mouth. Okay, so my mouth, maybe I'll come in and I'll do a traditional mouth. If you use carbon paper, and the problem with carbon paper is when you lay it down and you hold it, what happens, see if I do this, there's nothing there. when you do that with carbon and you can't get it off. You don't have that problem when you use graphite paper. And also, graphite paper is erasable. So as I'm going, as I'm done, well, he doesn't have a nose, does he? We'll give him a nose. Okay. And then we'll give him a bat. Remember the bats, just side to side, scoop down, and then up and in, and up and in, up. And then we'll give him a bat here to get rid of this spot. We'll give him one here. And we'll put his wing right over. You see how I just took that whole spot right out of there? Okay. And he's got a little different face, but that doesn't bother me. Okay. Let me check. Oh, you guys are being so good tonight. Nobody's asking me any questions. That just means I'm doing so good. Okay. So now we're going to paint black. And we're going to base coat. Lamp black. I do know paint is very hard to find right now. DecoArt is working double speed, but they're still on restrictions, so they can only do so much. Alright, so I'm going to come in, and when you base coat, this is really important, because your base coat matters as much as anything you do. If you have a yucky base coat, you can't fix it. And I always tell my students, I can fix anything. I can't fix a bad base coat. So when I base coat, I load my whole brush and I'm pulling. So I'm thin. I have a thin coat. People tend to want to, let me see if I can show you this, to go like this and have all these lumps in here. It's hard to see. If you have all those, here, maybe that's better. If you have all these heavy lumps here, watch how much I can pull out of that. If you have all those heavy lumps there, they dry there. There's nothing you can do to get around those lumps. So your base coat is really, really important to your piece. Okay? Always remember, take your time base coating. The black will take me one coat. If I were using another coat, it might take 2, it might take 3. But the thing about that is, I would rather you take the time and do 2 or 3 coats and have a nice base coat and a nice piece to work with than to say, oh, I hate my piece because I have all these lumps I can't get rid of. Don't rush your base coat. That's kind of painting 101. And sometimes, even when I do beginner classes like this, I forget to say that. And I should never forget to say that because it's such an important step. You know, and when we're in person at the library, I've already done the base coating. So I often forget to say it. But it's such an important step for your finished piece. So when I base coat, and I know some of you are painting along with me in your base coating. So, when you're base coating, I use flat brushes. Some teachers use filberts. Some use rounds. None of the above is the wrong thing to use. As long as you're getting smooth base coats and you're using whichever brush you feel most comfortable with, that's the right brush. You know, just because I use flats and some people say, well, you know, I like filberts. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with using a different brush than any teacher uses. Use what feels comfortable in your hand. When you paint, worry about learning the techniques. The techniques are what's important. Okay? So you see how the black's covering in one coat? Okay. Now, I'll just keep giving you tips till I'm base coated. So when you transfer your pattern, use your pattern as a guide, okay? Because your graphite is erasable. So you don't have to, if you say, oh, this side is too high, I might come here and go to there, and then after, I'll just go in and erase it. Graphite is erasable. I know this is pencil, but this will erase too. Graphite is erasable with a regular eraser. You can also use odorless turpenoid, not turpentine, turpenoid. I often, after I'm totally done basing a piece, I will use turpenoid. And I'll just go over it so and it'll take off any graphite that is not under paint. If it's under paint, it won't take it off. Okay. I think I put mine away. I did. All right, so see how I'm just using it as a guide? So don't stress that it's not perfect. And that's coming from me where everything has to be perfect. But it doesn't. It just doesn't. Okay, so we're here. And we're almost base coated. Now look at how cute he's looking. Now, when you base coat, use the biggest brush you can for the area. So now I'm going to paint the bath. So now I'll flip down to a 2 flat. Okay. Sometimes I get a line of paint on the edge of the design. Yes, Marie, I always start in the middle because then you can work your lines out as you get to the edge. And if you try to go back in and take it off, what happens is it goes out of the line. If you start, like if it's a small area and you start at the edge, take your finger and push it in. And that will stop the lines. But I always tend to start in the middle. And then I can go here, but there's not as much paint on my brush. When you load your brush and you lay your brush down, that wherever you lay your brush is where the most paint is going to be. Okay? And that's with anything. That's with a liner, that's with a flat, that's with anything. Where you lay your brush. Now, because I have all the paint here, I'll come and I'll pull some paint off here and then I'll go over here. And sometimes people do their base coating and then they'll come back in with a liner and get these points. I just go up on the edge. Again, neither way is right or wrong. It's perfectly fine to go back and use a liner. There's no problem with that. Okay, so here. And here, and we're almost base coated. And at one point I used to have an extra piece base coated so I could keep moving. But the people painting along then couldn't keep up. So that's why I'm base coating. So always paint along or be patient with me so we can make everybody happy and we can make everybody creative. Okay, so you see how now, and I have no lumps and it dries pretty fast, and I can see that it's dry. I can see it's not dry right here. There's a little spot right here. Okay, now I'm going to show you, I'm going to paint the stem avocado. Now this will be a little bit easier because it's on the edge, but watch the difference. This is nice and opaque. If I'm here, you can still see the green right through that. Can you see that? But I still pull it smooth. I'm still pulling it smooth. And then as soon as it dries, I'll just put another coat and then I'll be okay. Sometimes I want it transparent, but in this case, okay. Now this is going to look just a little different than that. Now, whichever face you used, if you decided to just do a traditional pumpkin with triangle eyes and triangle nose, that's fine. There is no problem with that. You should always do what makes you happy. So, sorry. Just let me go back quickly. We base coated, then we came in and we floated our ribs and our edges and our bottom in Heritage Brick. Remember, floating, wet, blot, load, blend. We transferred our pattern, and that's using the graphite tracing down first, graphite underneath. We base coated, thin coats, okay? It makes no difference. A question I get a lot is, does it matter if the brush is dry or the brush is wet? It does not matter. If you find the paint is hard to pull, then just make it a little damp. Don't make it wet. But my brush is too small. It makes no difference. That's not a right or wrong issue. So now you could see how you can see through that. Okay, there's transparent spots. So my second coat, I'll just come in and I'll just put another coat. And you see, now I'm opaque. And I have no lumps, and I have a really nice base coat to work with. Okay? I forgot for a minute it was my piece on the screen. I was going to say, good job. Now you can all laugh at me because that's what I do. Okay, so now here's his face. Here, I put these edges in. And what these edges do is it makes it look like it has depth. So I go from here, who's a very cute pumpkin, to looking like I have a cut edge. Like you carved the pumpkin and you have an edge. You see that? So to do that, and there's a lot of techniques in this little piece, I'm going to take a 2 flat and I'm going to wash. Now when I wash, I'm going to wash in Cad Yellow. I take my paint, my brush, I go into the water, I go straight from the water to my puddle. And I make an inky little puddle there so that it doesn't run. So if you see, it's not running, but it's inky. So it'll go on nice and transparent. And I'm going to come, now I'm going to lay the brush here, I'm diagonal, so I'm thinner here, then pressure, I get thicker here, and then I'm going to get thinner again. So you see how I just made a whole cut edge? And it is transparent. When you do a wash, it is transparent. There's no maybe. It is transparent. Okay, so I'll come in and I'll do the same thing here. Whoops. Pressure and up. And I went on the black a little. So the answer to that is just take a damp Q-tip. Q-tips from the dollar store because they have less cotton on them. And just come in and pull it off. You can pull it off or you can repaint that black. Okay. There we go. Now I want to make a cut edge on the nose. Some here. And I'll have a cut edge here. Okay. Maybe I'll make a cut edge at the bottom too. Okay. Now I wouldn't make a cut edge on all edges because then what happens is it looks like you're just outlining it. It doesn't look like it's a cut edge. When I get to here, my mouth, Now on this mouth, if you're doing the same mouth, I did the side, the bottom, and the side. Okay, same way. So here I'll come and I'll do along the bottom here, and I'll come up the left side, and here I'll do the same side, the left side, and maybe I'll come down the bottom again so that it looks like I cut from the bottom. And all I'm doing, now I did this whole section here, 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 and here without reloading my brush. Okay? And that's called a wash. It's a wash of color. That you're just laying in the color, but it's not solid. It's watered down paint. That's a wash. So far tonight, we've floated, we've dry brushed, we've base coated, oh, look at that, and we've washed. And watch, because you see what I did? I laid my hand right in it. There we go. And that should dry pretty quickly. He's much cuter than the dollar store one, isn't he? What's the difference with the cut edges? What does that mean, Marie? What exactly are you asking me? Okay, as soon as you tell me, I'll answer you. All right, so you see how now I have my pumpkin. I have depth in my floating. I have depth in my dry brushing because that pulled it up. I have depth in my cut edges. Okay? I have done all of this with techniques and color. I have not done anything extravagant. Oh, what a difference. I read it wrong. I thought you were asking me what is the difference with cut edges. But yes, because the cut edges stop it from looking flat to looking like you have sides and there's depth. Every little thing, anybody that ever paints anything with me will find that I do 900 steps, but every one of those steps brings us more depth. And the more depth we do, the better it looks. And they're not hard steps. They're not hard steps at all. I misunderstood you, sorry. That's me not being able to read. Because I'm blonde. Don't tell anybody. Okay. So, let's work here. Let's give this a second to dry, and we'll work on bats. Okay? So we have some bats here. We're going to use Wild Orchid. Now, any light purple will work. And keep in mind, when you come and you paint these with me, if you don't have the colors, you have two choices. Message me, and I will gladly tell you what to substitute. I know colors are very hard to find right now. Or kind of look at the colors and decide. So if you were to use a light purple here, any light purple, that's fine. It's never an issue. I don't ever get crazy about subs and colors. And you're home and I don't know anyway. Okay. So now what I want to do is the same thing. I want to make my bats dimensional. So I'm going to float, wet, blot, load, blend. Let me show you again so that we can do this together. You'll get this down. Wet, shine, blot, till the shine hits the ferrule. Corner load. So I just have a little bit of paint on there. You should be able to see that with the color. And then I blend small and flat till I have a graduation of color. And I should have a nice graduation of color. Okay. Now what I want to do is I'm going to float the left side of the body. And I need to dry. So here's the left side. if I turn and I float the right side of the body, I'm going to do it so that I can show you. If I come in and I do this, look, I just took all of that off because my spot was wet. So you always wait until you're dry. So when you have a small spot like that, you do one side and then you move away from it. So in this case, I'll come over here and I'll highlight the top of the wings. Okay. And then I'll wait and I'll do the other side and the other wing. Okay. That's the best way to kind of use your time, you know. So in the meantime, because again, we have drying time. I'm dry. I don't know if you are. So let's go to the stem. So you see how I'm always jumping around? I'm always jumping around because we have drying time. If you're home, you can do a couple of things. Like if you were painting this at home by yourself, you could wait till it dries and stay on the element you're on. Or you could jump around and just do something else, which is what I kind of tend to do. Or you could get up and go have coffee, if you drink coffee. So now I'm going to float again. And I want to push the stem under the pumpkin. So I'm going to push the stem down. So I'm floating right at the pumpkin. Now if you have this piece, it's no different. I'm right here, right at the bottom of the pumpkin, and I'm pushing him down. Okay? And that's creating that depth there. Now you can hear me washing my brush. Anybody who has a brush basin, which this is going to embarrass me, but this is my brush basin. This is my nice, I have a whole bunch of them that look like this. There are ridges on the end. Always pull one way. Don't do this. You will break all your bristles at the ferrule. So just one way. And try not to like really scrape it. It sounds louder because my room is really, really quiet. But just one way. Okay? And then dry it off. Now you see my dirty brush basins. The sign of a true artist. Okay, so now I'm going to come back and my bats are dry. So I'm going to go back into my wild orchid and I'm floating. Wet, dry, load, blend. And I'm going to do the other side of the bat's body and the top of the wing. Make sure I'm on camera. And if I'm ever off camera, I will catch it, but there's a delay. So, and then I'll do the other side. And now if you don't have a mop, you will notice that I often just this with my finger. You can do that. On little spots like that, I just blot it and that blends it. Okay. I paint very simply. I don't have a ton of tools. Okay. We're okay. All right. So now I'm going to float. Okay. To make my cut edges work, we have to make them, I'll move that there, dark up here and light down here. So you can see a full cut edge. But what people tend to do is they float with their paint towards the black because our mind says we float up against the color. That's not true. This is where we want to create that depth between here and here. Okay? So we're going to float, it's a little shiny. Okay, hopefully it won't be on here. This is because this one's varnished. So we're going to come in and the top half I'm going to float Heritage Brick. So I wet, blot, load, blend. And with my paint towards the outside of the yellow area, I'm going to float. Okay, you see that? From here, there we go. And that gives us a really nice cut edge. If your paint is getting dry, just take new paint. I'm going to do the same thing here. I didn't blend that too good, did I? There we go. Okay, and I'll do a little bit on the bottom, because then we're going to bring some white in. That'll give us depth and closeness. I'll bring a little bit here. Remember, wet, blot, load, blend. And here. Stay on the edge. My paint, the paint corner of the brush with the paint on it, is towards the outside. Okay. So now when I come here, I flip. Always turn your piece so your hand is comfortable. Don't move your hand so that your piece is comfortable. There is no reason that you can't move your piece. The only time you can't move your piece is when you're working on a wall or a huge piece of furniture. Then you have to learn how to manipulate your hand. But anything that can be anything that can be done. Thanks, Dolores. Anything that can be moved, move it. And it's no different for you than it is for me. I don't say it for you and do it a different way for me. The exact way I say for you to do it is the exact way I do it. Which is why sometimes when you get you're working on your piece, you'll see that I am turning my piece. And I do, just the same as you do. Okay? So you're going to take warm white. I think we're going to finish early tonight. And we're going to do the same thing where we don't have the red. So we're going to float. So my heritage brick is to here. So I'll come in and I'll bring some white here. Now if I get it in here, I can take a Q-tip or I can take the clean edge of my brush and just pull it out. Okay, I'll pull some down here. I'll pull some down here and up here and down here. And it doesn't have, it can connect, it doesn't have to connect. So don't make yourself crazy thinking, oh, it has to connect. And then I will go here. Okay. Now you'll see, I don't have an eraser here. But this line here, I'll just use an eraser and erase it. The last thing I'll do is dot my eyes. And I'll show you, I use a stylus, but that's the very last thing I do. And it's the last thing I do because as I do things, I don't want my hand to hit it. So now I'm going to take olive green and my Mezza Luna dry brush. Now I use my Mezza Luna dry brush, okay? Again, I use it dry, but it's a blend of synthetic and natural bristles. It is a tongue twister. And what that's going to do is, where this dry brushing was a very soft dry brush, this is going to give me very textured lines, which is exactly what I want. So depending on the look you want, will depend on the brush you use. Okay? So I come in, and this is a little different because we don't scrub this brush. I'm going to load in my paint. So I picked up paint, and then I'm just going to put it in my paper towel and pinch. So see how much I took off? I'm not scrubbing, I'm just pinching. And then using my brush straight up and down, I'm going to come in and I'm going to dry brush my lines. Again, I'll build it up. Now if I need more paint, I get more paint. I don't try to have more paint and do it in one stroke. And you see those lines? I want those texture lines. And the shine you're seeing here is because this is varnished. And I varnish it to protect it, but I should think about not. Now if you see, my brush is flat. It's on the edge of the bristles, but I'm not on my side. And if anybody's friends with me on Facebook, I'm going to do dry brushing tomorrow. I'm going to post a Zoom link tonight. And that'll help you learn how to dry brush. Okay? So you see what I did? And I just created that. Then I can wash it. Now this brush, its uniqueness is that you can, most dry brushes you cannot use again until they're dry. This you can wash and pinch it dry. I would pinch it 2 or 3 times, and then you can just use it again. So it's a great brush to be able to do that. Now I might say this isn't bright enough. So if that's the case, I'll just come in with a quick float of olive green. I don't know if I said I was using olive, I'm sorry. And I might just brighten the top. Okay, and that'll give me a nice bright top. Let me see if this works. Oh, this is a good eraser. So I'll just come in, and I'm just using an eraser on a mechanical pencil. I'm not even using, I usually use a click eraser. But see, now it's gone. Okay. So when I come in, we'll take that out. Now, when you varnish, and this is always, I always varnish the day after. Always make sure you erase whatever lines you want erased first, because once you varnish over them, they are forever. You will not be happy because you'll be able to see them. And I can attest to that because I've done it many, many, many times. All right, so when I do my eyes, and then I'll go back over things. I think we'll finish early tonight. I'm sorry. I use a stylus. Now a stylus, I can't show you because I don't know where mine is. The stylus is metal, and it's got 2 balls at the end. Here it is. They come in different sizes. So this is what a stylus looks like. It's wood. It could be lucite. I have a couple of different ones. This one has a teeny tiny ball. This one has a bigger ball. They come with a big ball. Okay? So what you can do... Oh, crud. Sorry. My brush just rolled right in my paint. Alright, so you can just make perfect dots. If you want to make them a little bigger, you can this. Or you can use a bigger stylus. So, here, let me get a bigger stylus and show you. Okay, so this is with my wood handle. This is my stylus with a lucite handle. And this has got a bigger than the other one, and this is a big one. So I can just come in and just make bigger dots. And they make really good dots. So if I were doing, I don't know, berries and stuff, and I wanted little white dots, I would just come in and do a bunch of dots like that. Okay? So when I do my bat's eyes, I'll use the bigger stylus, but you can use a smaller stylus. You can use, if you don't have any, hi Donna, if you don't have a stylus, you can use a toothpick, you can use a liner. Now your eyes. I'm going to come in and they're going to look huge. I watch people dot. Let me show you. Wait a minute, let me get these in and I'll show you. So here are my eyes. When I'm in person, what I see is people try to dot up here and then dot the black here. The black will go over the white, so you don't have to worry about that. What you want is you want the white, and then once that dries, we'll put the black right over it. Okay? Now, because we have time, just say I'm plain up here. So I'll come in with my liner. When you use a liner, always go from the water to the paint so that you're nice and thin and you're ink-like. I'm going to use my brush straight up and down, and I'll make some curlies. Now if you notice, I'm using this part of my hand. I'm not moving my brush. That's a big thing for people. They forget to move their hand. They always move, so they'll anchor their hand like they were painting, and they'll move their brush like this. And then they say, Linda, I hate doing curlies. I hate, can you do them? Well, that's why they hate them, because they're not moving their hands. So now I just gave it a little bit of oomph up here. You see that? And I just did that with Avocado, which is the color I base coated the stem with. But you have 3 greens. So you have Midnight Green, you have Avocado, and you have Olive. You can use any of the colors you already have. So say you wanted to do a leaf, or you wanted to do anything else on here. You can do anything as long as you're bringing the same colors into your piece. You don't want to just make a random color in there. So if I took blue and put blue here, it would stick out like a sore thumb. So we never ever do that. He has bangs now. Okay, Nanette, he has bangs now. Does the Dollar Tree have pumpkin ornaments? I think that they do. So if you just go and look, and you can do them with all different faces and just hang them in your window. The Dollar Tree lately has been a wealth of surfaces. They're just fun surfaces. Before I get off, I'm going to show you December's surfaces. I am not going to show you December's pieces, because we all know I have to keep some secrets, you know. I'll show you November's beginner piece, but I will show you what to go look for. I know you're not, because you just got here. All right, so now I'm pretty dry. So now I'll take my stylus, and watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to give him his eyeballs, and I'm just going to go over the white and give him his eyeballs. Now, the thing about eyeballs, all left, all right, all top, all bottom. I'll make this one cross-eyed just for you. I did the inside. So here, these are both on the bottom in the center. These I did on the inside, so now he looks cross-eyed. That I did on purpose, but he's cute. So that's okay. Now, I might say I want to give him a mouth. Now, if you want to give him a mouth, take black and tip it in white and give him a little mouth so you can see it, right? And we can make him, he was a cute one, right? Because you can't do black because he's painted black, And you can't do white because then it's too much. And then we'll make him a little vampire bat. And we'll give him a little fang. A little fang is an upside down triangle. So when you're painting something, and when I show you the next pieces, you'll see what I mean. But when you're painting something, always think outside the box. There's nothing you can't paint on, number one. Number two, there's nothing you can't, he's got a nice bright thing. There's nothing you can't change. So all I did is I adjusted. So if I say to you, okay, get this piece, and you say, no, Linda, I like this piece, or I can't find that piece, I'm going to get this piece. That's fine. This was bigger, so I just adjusted the size. The stem was a little different, so I just moved the bats. I changed the face so that I could show you how I changed the face. Okay? And remember, this is the piece I bought at the dollar store for $1. And then I painted on the back. So if you were to hang it on the door, you're not going to see the back. You can take a dollar store piece and make it a beautiful piece. Years and years ago, we used to need something to hold our brushes in. Now, when I'm lazy, I use red Solo cups. But we used to use soup cans. So we'd open a soup can and we'd prime it with just gray priming spray paint that you can buy at Walmart. And then we would paint on them. And we painted a whole bunch of them. And you just put paintbrushes in them. You could put candy canes in them. You can put any pencils. So if you want to make kids pencil holders, you can do that. Okay? If you're working on this piece, all I did was paint this black, and then I dotted in purples, the purple and the orange. And that's all I did on this piece. So I'm going to go through what I did on this piece. I like the pumpkin's face. It looks 3D. Yes, that's true. If you go to the dollar store, be careful, because you never spend $1. That is true. I got yelled at for sending somebody to the dollar store that she spent $30. But you can never have enough to paint on. That's for sure. All right, so I'm going to go through this. And then I'll show you, we'll probably end a few minutes early. I'll show you November's. I'll show you next week's intermediate piece. The difference in the intermediate classes, I don't go through technique as much. So instead of going through every step of floating, I will say it once and then I will tell you, float here, float here. I will say dry brush here. I don't go step by step. So that's the difference in the two. And FYI, you can always rewatch these videos on the library's Facebook page. If you go under, I know as of now, it'll be on the live tab, and then scroll down and it'll be there. At some point, and I don't know what point, it moves to the events tab. So all the old videos that I've done, and we've been doing them since we closed in March, so probably May. We do 2 a month. They're all, most of them are under the events tab. Okay. And I only leave the line drawings up until the day of class, because they usually end up as pattern packets. So I base coated my piece, Spiced Pumpkin. Now, when I base coated my piece, I first undercoated it in Golden Straw. So what undercoating means is I painted the whole thing yellow, and then I painted the orange. And the reason I did that is because when you paint orange, orange is transparent. So you'll never get a good opaque coverage on a transparent color. Okay? So I undercoated in Golden Straw, and then I painted Spiced Pumpkin. I came in, I shaded my ribs. Remember, dark makes the item recede, light brings the item towards us. I dry brushed in the center of the ribs with Cad Yellow. Then I transferred my pattern. Remember, transferring the pattern, always use graphite paper Do not. Now, you could use graphite paper or transfer paper. They are exactly the same thing, just different companies call them different things. Okay? Transfer your pattern on. Paint black, nice thin coats on the facial features and the bats. Then you'll come in and you'll wash your cut edges. I washed them in cad yellow. Then I shaded and highlighted the outside edge, heritage brick, warm white. That gave me my cut edge, so it looks like this is much further back. So it looks like I have the side edge as if I was cutting into the pumpkin or carving the pumpkin. I came in and I highlighted in Wild Orchid, a light purple, the edges of the body, tops of the wings. I dotted the eyes. I dotted the whole eye in warm white. I dotted the pupil. I gave him a mouth and a fang, which I did not on this one, but it looks pretty cute. I shaded the bottom of the stem in Midnight Green, and using a Mezza Luna, I highlighted the top in olive green. Now, tomorrow, I'll put a coat of varnish on. I always varnish it because it protects it. I use satin. Let me just see, I have it here. I use, ooh, crap, that's what I did. Oops, sorry. I have a bottle of gloss, and I have no idea why. So that's why he's so shiny. I don't generally do shiny. I have nothing else here to show you that. Oh, yes, I do. Well, I'll show you in a minute. Okay, we have to put that out of the way because I never use gloss. So I use satin, and what satin will do is it won't give you the high shine. Okay, but I wait 24 hours. If you're going to paint the edges of whatever you're painting, always varnish first and then paint the edges, because then you could just come in and, I don't know about you, but I make a nice mess because I'm not neat. And I just come in with my finger and it cleans right off, and it looks like I spent a long time doing the edges. Okay, so that's our whole pumpkin. Next Wednesday, today's Wednesday, next Wednesday, this is our intermediate class. Okay, this piece is on an 8x10 anything. I just happen to have a piece of wood hanging around. So it's, let me see if I turn it this way. You're on a delay, so bear with me. Okay, so there you go. All right, this is an 8x10. I have glitter on my ghosts. I have glitter on my pumpkin. That is optional. You can do this whole piece with no glitter. I stenciled the words. You can use any words or no words. You can use words. I just stenciled words. If you want the exact stencil I have, it's on my Facebook page. It's a Lori Spelt stencil. So this is next week. Next month for you guys is November 12th. And we're doing this piece. Okay? I'll go through everything with you. Your background will have to be done. The prep will be there. And when you do your background, just take a big brush. And I use a big, crappy brush. So I don't care that it's not in good shape. And I just pick up both colors and I adjust this. And that's how I get the 2 and 3 and 4 colors in my background. That's all that is. Okay? You can do that on any surface. Let me see. So this is 8x10. So this is probably 9x12. Somewhere in that area. Okay? I have this piece, so I have this extra piece. You can do it on anything and add the words. You cannot add the words. This piece will go up on my, it's probably on the library website, but it'll be on my Facebook page after next week's class. So after Wednesday, I'll put it up. And then the only other thing I want to show you is in December, and again, this is, I'm trying to make it easy for you guys to get surfaces. So my intermediate class will be painted on this. I'm not going to show you what I'm doing with it yet. You have to wait until the November class to see. But this, and it's under the ornament section. It's hanging on the wall. And it looks just like this. My beginner class in the store looks like this. I know people have been having a hard time because they don't know what they look like before they're painted. Let me see. Okay, so it says Mary. But if you look at it in relation to the ornament, it's pretty big. Thanks, Deb. The stencil is LS257. If you want it, LoriSpeltz.com. So it's a pretty big piece. This will hang on the wall, and this will hang on your tree. It's a little sled, and it's really cute, and they're really very, very, very cute when they're done. So Dollar Tree has them. I'm telling you now because once Dollar Tree does not have them, they don't have them. They just, oh, Marie, you're welcome, always. Dollar Tree has them when they have them, and that's the best that, you know, so that's why I'm telling you now. There's a couple of things I picked up there to kind of play with for January. Once I know, I'll put it out on my Facebook so you can see. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Do we need to sand the ornament down? Okay. No, you don't need to sand the ornament down. I can't show you the done one because I don't want to. You can leave it just as is. I'm going to show you both ways. You can leave it just as is, or you can wood fill these cracks. If you're going to wood fill these cracks, easily take off the mustache and the nose. I just kind of slide like a butter knife or something under it. But don't, you know, get rid of it because you're going to glue it back on. All right. You can, you don't have to. If you want to leave the cracks, that's fine. You're just going to paint this, and I'll put it up before. You're going to paint this gray, and you're going to paint this flesh tone. But he's really very, very cute when he's done. But no. The answer is you do not have to fill these, and you do not have to sand it down. Okay? This part here will stay as is. And then the runners, if you make a mess like me, you'll paint over them. If you're neater than me, you won't have to. Okay? So I will show you those at the November live, and we will post it probably right after that. So November classes are November 12th and November 18th. So the beginner class is the 12th. So I think that's everything. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're ending a little bit early, and I'm sorry. All right, so if you guys painted with me tonight, I thank you for being here no matter what. But if you painted with me, please think about posting your finished pieces on my Facebook page, or better yet, the library Facebook page. It's always nice for them to know that you all are enjoying and you're painting the pieces along with me. Okay? And if you want to learn dry brushing, I will post that on my Facebook tonight for tomorrow night. So anybody who wants to come and Zoom with me, you're more than welcome. And I guess that's where we're at. Have a very safe Halloween if you're not here next week. Stay safe. Be creative. We always have to be creative. And anybody who ever has any questions, always message me. Message the library. They will get in touch with me. Comment on this post. I usually get notifications, and I will absolutely answer you. All right? We're out. I'm going to move this. Have a fabulous night. Thank you for being here. And happy October. Bye, all.